On August 9, 2025, in his home in Medjugorje, the visionary Ivan received from the Virgin Mary a crucial revelation. The Queen of Peace declared with crystalline clarity, "I need you. I cannot realize my plans without you." A confession that leaves one breathless when the Mother of God herself admits her dependence on our free collaboration. What can be so urgent as to require this heartfelt call? An appeal that resonates like a maternal cry of alarm to prepare humanity for what the renowned theologian and expert in demonology Father José Antonio Fortea defines, without mincing words, the purifying intervention of God. When and why will God intervene? If these themes are close to your heart, help us spread them. A like can do so much, as well as your subscription to the channel. Thank you from the heart. Before understanding the dramatic urgency of the Marian plans, through the prophetic analysis of Father Fortea, let us listen to the words that the Queen of Peace wanted to deliver to us on August 9th in Ivan's house. A message that reveals the absolute necessity of our collaboration before it is too late.
Dear children, today I desire to invite you all to pray in a special way for my intentions. How many times have I told you? Dear children, I need you. I cannot realize my plans without you. Therefore, I invite you once again. Pray for peace. And I thank you once again today, dear children, for having responded to my call.
If you want to promise the Virgin Mary that you will pray for her intentions and collaborate with her plans, write in the comments. Here I am, my mother. Amen. In the prophetic analysis, made in 2015, by Father José Antonio Fortea, we understand the temporal urgency of this collaboration and the nature of the divine intervention that approaches. Father Fortea begins his theological reflection with a fundamental principle that illuminates the Marian message. Certainly, life is a time of trial. If God sees that the time of trial, instead of improving his children, is making them worse, it is logical that God intervenes. The Spanish priest identifies in contemporary society something much more serious than individual apparatuses of corruption. It is society itself that has become a soul-destroying machine. The theologian's diagnosis is merciless in its clarity. If society converts itself into a machine creator of perversion of souls, it is logical that God destroys that machine. The problem is that the machine is the entire society. The problem is that there is no apparatus that is making souls worse. The problem is that it is human beings who altogether are making malignant the souls of those who incorporate themselves into that society. Faced with this devastating reality, Father Fortea does not hide his prophetic realism. No matter how many times I think about it, when you have already tried everything, the only solution is to purify. And purify through suffering, war, all the things that appear in the apocalypse. The theologian explains that in history there have already been many small apocalypses, like the Second World War and the French Revolution, but now, we are approaching something much vaster. The most chilling revelation arrives when Father Fortea specifies the scope of what approaches. I think that now, we are approaching a stage of purification, not of a country or a continent, but of an entire global civilization. The purification that looms on the horizon will not be local, but planetary. Involving the entire Western civilization that has abandoned God. The priest identifies a dramatic escalation in the rejection of God that goes beyond simple abandonment of faith. The problem is that we have already entered a phase of aggressiveness against the Holy Church of God. I show myself very pessimistic regarding what will happen in the future. But I don't think this will happen in 200 years or 100 years, considering how rapidly society has evolved. I believe that God will intervene in this generation. The timing of divine intervention, according to Father Fortea's analysis, follows a precise paternal logic. Leaving one entire generation more, or two, would only serve to make things worse. Therefore, I believe that as a father, he will do everything possible so that this machine that leads to condemnation stops. The time that is still granted to us is not casual, explains the theologian. He still gives us time for conversion. He still gives us time to change, and in a certain way, following the biblical scheme, he also lets some time pass so that the cup of iniquity fills up. And thus, it becomes so evident that he must intervene, that he can do it in a form already integral, perfect, and justified. But how to recognize that we have truly reached this critical point? Father Fortea identifies unmistakable signs. To the extent that a society degrades morally each time, there is less democracy. To the extent that a society is more virtuous, men are more honest, they are more integral, morally speaking, society has its democracy more protected. The theologian observes that we are witnessing precisely this transformation. Societies increasingly less democratic, where power concentrates in the hands of few. Countries will be each time less democratic, warns the priest, explaining that this process will inevitably lead to global conflict. It is a mechanism that history has already shown. When power concentrated in authoritarian monarchs, these kings, sometimes even capriciously, began to fight among themselves, and who suffered was the simple people, the people. The diagnosis is clear. Without God, democracy dies, and tyranny is born. But it is when Father Fortea describes the mechanism of persecution that will precede divine intervention that we clearly understand why the Virgin Mary urgently needs us for her plans. I believe that persecution today will come from the legal field, explains the theologian, with a precision that makes one shudder. There will not be concentration camps or Roman circuses, but something much more subtle and devastating. The picture described by the priest is terrifying in its plausibility. Many politicians at a certain moment will say, "The Constitution has these values, you are not accepting them." Even when times will already be more mature, some politician will say, "We will have to see if this religious denomination adapts to our constitutional values. And if it doesn't adapt, we will remove its legal personality." The consequences of this strategy would be devastating. Not having legal personality, what does it mean? That you cannot open a bank account in the name of the Catholic Church. You must put concrete names of physical persons. You cannot have a seminary in the name of the church, you cannot have churches in the name of the church. This would lead to the reduction of the church to small temples, very small ones, put in the name of particular persons. But Father Fortea also reveals the most refined diabolical cunning. The theme that moreover allows a patriotic church, a constitutional church, is even worse, because it divides Christians. It will lead to the creation of a church in which is preached what the world wants to be preached. The acceleration of times is a crucial element in the priest's analysis. If in 20 years society has changed a lot, most of the changes have happened in the last 5 years. What could happen in another 10 years? Father Fortea observes that the rhythm of social changes is accelerating exponentially, making future developments unpredictable. The description of future society is apocalyptic. Society continues to degrade if increasingly evil is called good and good is called evil. The destruction of the family creates a society of people who live alone in their apartments, without children, without spouse, living day by day. This existential solitude, explains the theologian, inevitably leads to increased perversion and the creation of a society of lions fighting among themselves, of wolves fighting among themselves. Father Fortea connects this moral degradation directly to biblical prophecy. The Bible clearly warns us in its pages that distancing from God leads to the appearance of the Antichrist. The priest explains the diabolical logic of this character. If what Christ brought was peace, charity, this power, with the excuse of a new order, with the excuse of ending all the struggles of the world, what it will do will be to bring war. We will put order by making more war. The prophetic climax is reached when Father Fortea describes the final events. And all this set of situations leads to famine, leads to plague, leads the world to the last cups of wrath. Punishments that come directly from the hand of God, so that men understand the nature of what is happening to them. Regarding the famous 3 days of darkness, the theologian directly quotes the Apocalypse. In the book of Apocalypse, chapter 6, verse 12, it says, "Then I saw when the Lamb opened the 6th seal, and there was a great earthquake. The sun became black like a sack of hair, and the moon became all like blood." Hair is black hair. Here, one certainly speaks of darkness. Father Fortea's conclusion resonates like a divine sentence. I believe that given the foundations we have laid, it is not absurd to think that in this generation, in 20 years, we can find ourselves led to a purification of truly apocalyptic character. The theologian admits that no one knows the day nor the hour, but observes an impressive convergence. There are many who live an intense life of prayer, and all have arrived at this same conclusion. We will see great very bad things in very little time. This is why the message of the Queen of Peace of August 9th assumes a drama without precedent. When the Virgin declares, "I need you, I cannot realize my plans without you," she is not making a generic appeal to devotion. She is launching a cry of alarm for urgent intervention before the cup of iniquity of which Father Fortea speaks fills up definitively. Her mysterious plans are the last strategy of salvation before God's purifying intervention. Every prayer for peace that we raise, every conversion we obtain, every testimony we render, contributes to delaying or mitigating what the theologian defines a purification of truly apocalyptic character. The Virgin Mary knows that time is running out. She knows that this generation could be the last to receive the grace of conversion before the great divine intervention. For this reason, her request is so heartfelt, so specific, so urgent. It is no longer time for lukewarm devotions or occasional prayers. As devout children of the Queen of Peace, we understand that every moment of this time of grace is precious. The Virgin Mary needs our prayers, our sacrifices, our faithfulness, to realize her plans before God must intervene with justice. If you have in your heart a particular person who lives in the solitude described by Father Fortea, entrust her to the Holy Mother, writing her name in the comments. Before the 3 days of darkness, which represent a final purification, we will experience darkness through a great prophesied blackout. That will directly strike some zones, but indirectly, the entire world. If you want to know more, click the video that has appeared on your screen. May God always illuminate your path. See you in the next video.